This morning's presentation, of course, is all about the part 4 of our so-called France Kaleidoscope program, where we are going all over France from north to south. This is the last part, the south of France, Provence and the Côte d'Azur. And so let's get started. I'll just say briefly, because I think most of the people I've seen online this morning are regulars with us. Wheel and Anchor is about bringing travelers together. I've spent the last 3 decades organizing trips for Canadians to all points around the globe. I think I've traveled with Canadians to about all the continents, and some of them multiple times. And it's, for me, a great joy. And it's just a lot of fun because a lot of the people that travel with me, often we have such a great time, and there's a camaraderie that gets created. And you know, when you travel with people whom you know and you share something in common with, the experience is just so much better. And of course, as all of you know, my goal is that everybody becomes well-traveled and well-connected. And you know, I've shared various anecdotes before, but you all know people besides yourselves who are also well-traveled, and just the level of conversation, the level of conversation, the level of understanding about world affairs, current affairs, and a little bit of empathy for people in other parts of the world is really what we get out of traveling and spending time in these places, particularly when we take the time to do stuff on our own and connect with the local people. And that's the well-connected bit. It's not just about connecting with our other members, although that's a big part of it, but it's also about connecting with the people that we meet along the way. So that's our mission at Wheel and Anchor. Joining me today, as usual, Joel is actually not joining us today. He had a bit of a conflict with another meeting, but Paula is on today, our senior trip specialist, whom many of you will know. You've spoken with her if you've called into our office to either book a trip or if you've had any questions. So thank you for joining us as usual, Paula. Our agenda today, as per usual, you guys are interested in the beautiful part of southern France that we're going to be exploring today, and I'm going to be taking you on that trip, not only virtually today, but also next year. I'm planning to go along because I love France. I'm hoping to get there next month to check things out on various parts of our trip, as well as explore some things that we might do there in the future. And of course, we're going to be focusing today on Provence and the Côte d'Azur. And here, the lead-in picture, it's probably one of those things that you imagine when you think about Provence, of course, is the famous lavender fields. Now, I have to say that the lavender only blooms during a fairly short period in the middle of the summertime. And of course, we're going in the fall because the middle of the summer is holiday time in France, and it's an absolute zoo. And I would avoid France at that time because the traffic is mayhem and everything's packed. But that, of course, is when the lavender blooms. But nevertheless, the countryside is still magnificent. So let's look at the map of where we're going. The trip starts in Aix-en-Provence, which is, of course, in the sort of central western part of Provence. For those who are going to be on the previous part of our program, we'll be coming from the Canal du Midi. Our trip will end in Agde on the Mediterranean Sea further west, and we'll travel by coach to Aix-en-Provence, where we'll spend the first week. Those who are coming just for this program, and of course, this is an 11-night program, so it certainly justifies coming all the way from Canada just for this program. You will fly into Marseille, and from there, we have arranged a private transfer for anyone joining us in Marseille up to Aix-en-Provence. It's only about a 35-minute drive from the airport in Marseille. And as I say, we'll spend 7 nights exploring sort of the west, the central part, the Haute-Provence, I'll talk about in a second, the Rhone Valley, while we are in this beautiful city of Aix-en-Provence. From there, we'll go down to the coast, down to Centopei. The last 4 nights, we'll be exploring from our base in Nice. We'll be exploring the Mediterranean coast of the famed French Riviera and all that goes along with that. So that'll be our overall program. So let's look into it day by day, and I'll give you a little bit of a taste of what it's all about. So as I say, we're going to start in Aix-en-Provence, and this city, if you aren't familiar with it, it's a university town, and it's the home of some famous masters like I realized I missed a picture here. I wanted to show you a picture of the hotel because we spent quite a bit of time searching for the right place to stay. But let me say a few words about Aix-en-Provence first. It's a university town. There are tons and tons and tons of palaces that are adorned with fountains, like the one that you'll see on the next picture. And it just, everything about it oozes the south of France. And so, of course, when we're there, we have the benefit of being able to walk around and soak in the beautiful city. But we're going to be visiting all of the villages around. I'm going to talk a little bit about that as we explore the coming days on the trip. The hotels that we picked for this program, and generally speaking, I spend quite a bit of time, and together with my colleague Elsa, who some of you may have spoken with as well, searching for the right kind of place to stay, because I avoid, the chain hotels and all the rest of it. And we found this one called the Hotel Cezanne, which is just about 5-6 minutes walk from the very center of Aix-en-Provence. And Cezanne, of course, one of the great masters who hailed from this town, from this area, and his watercolor and various paintings are so well known and synonymous with what we imagine in our minds about that Provence is all about. So it's really, really a lovely, lovely property, and it's not very big. There's some different room categories available, but I just wanted to give you a taste of that, because it's so important when you're staying for a week that you have something a bit special that you really feel at home in. So as I say, the city itself, thousands of fountains, a lot of them adjoining with the aristocratic palaces that were built over the years, and truly a beautiful city. And we'll start off with, on our arrival day, have time to just wander around and orient ourselves, because pretty much everything we want to see is in walking distance. And then the following day, then we'll have a full tour of the city and taking in some of the sights. And again, the point of touring on these trips is because we allow a lot of free time. We want you to be able to go out and explore on your own. So it's certainly pointing out the highlights, pointing out the Aix Cathedral, like you can see here, but also what are the things that you can do when you have time on your own to explore. What are the restaurants to eat in, the cafes or the vinoteques? That's really what this is all about. So on our full day or a half day tour, on our first full day there, we'll have time with our guide to really understand a little bit about what this city is all about, the cobblestone streets, the narrow alleys, like any small town in the south of France or in any part of Europe. This is what Aix is all about. And as I say, it's a university town, so it's got quite a lively feel to it. You won't just find sort of retired tourists walking around, but you'll find a lot of, because we're in the middle of university time, so full of students, full of life. I really love this city. We'll then take trips, as I say, out into the different parts of the region. First of all, Haute-Provence, and Haute-Provence is the gateway, the foothills that then rise up to the French Alps. And this is where the home, in a town called Manosque, the home of L'Occitane en Provence, and particularly the ladies in our group will probably be familiar with the shop that has become ubiquitous in cities around the world. And this is where they gather a lot of the ingredients for all of their specialty skincare products. And so we will visit that town. We'll get a little bit of an understanding of the components that go into their products, which are so revered by people all around the world. We'll have lunch in one of these towns, and later in the afternoon, we'll visit actually the deepest canyon in Europe, known as the Verdon Gorge, and that'll be a highlight of seeing a bit of Haute-Provence. The next day, then we're going to head over to the east into the Rhone, over to the west into the Rhone Valley, and visit two places, one in particular, Arles and Les Alpes, which is again very different, because on one side in Haute-Provence, it's basically the foothills of the French Alps, and over here, as you can sort of judge by the picture, it's all limestone sort of rocky outcroppings. And in Arles in particular, this town was founded by Julius Caesar, so you get a sense of the age of it, and has some of the best preserved Roman ruins that you're going to find anywhere in France. The area is also known for its olive oil, and so we'll get a little bit of an insight into the production of French olive oil, which does differ in flavor, in texture compared to the oil that you'll find, for example, in the south of Spain. And one of the highlights of this day actually is we're going to visit a little town called Bol De Provence, and they have a fascinating exhibit in a limestone quarry. So you go into this quarry and it's like solid block walls, smooth walls that are about 15 meters high, and they project images of the great masters of Van Gogh, of Monet, Picasso, many of whom spent time in this part of the region. They project them onto the walls and to the backdrop of classical music from some of the great composers. I've really never seen anything quite like it. It's a remarkable experience, and something that, again, probably a lot of overseas guests don't get a chance to do, because you have to spend time to get into these villages to see a few of these different types of things. So that's going to be an exciting day there. We're also going to visit Marseille. And, it's interesting because I visited Marseille the first time when I was backpacking around Europe 30 years ago in 1991. And I remember we passed through the town because I was specifically told, oh, Marseille, it's a dangerous town. I mean, let's face it, it's one of France's primary ports. And you have a lot of trade coming from Africa, from Sardinia, from Algeria, from the ports along the northern coast of Africa. And for a long time in the 70s and 80s, it was a pretty rough town. And so we didn't even venture into town at the moment. Everything, looking out the railway station was gray and dark, and it had that very ominous feel to it. And yet in the latter part of the 90s and into the 2000s, they underwent a tremendous urban renewal, like a lot of French cities did, and it's now completely transformed. And you get a bit of an idea of it here. A lot of the old industrial port was converted into beautiful seafront and yachtscapes, yacht marinas and so on. The area of Le Panier, where we'll spend a lot of time walking around in. Again, you wouldn't have gone there 20, 25 years ago, and now it's turned into really, really beautiful city, worth visiting. It's easy to get to from Aix-en-Provence because it's a 45-minute train ride. Our hotel in Aix is literally about a 3-minute walk from the railway station, and similarly, the old port of Marseille is very close. So this will be an exciting day, and as usual, we give you the flexibility that we'll have a guided tour. We have a wonderful guide in Marseille who's going to show us around in the morning, and then you can we'll certainly stick around for lunch. Then you can continue to explore the city on your own, or if there's something that you're dying to see back in Aix, you can go back anytime you want. And of course, the trains in France run all the time, so it's really, really easy, and it's exciting to have a chance to explore some of these places on your own. We then will have a full free day in Aix, and I think the free days are some of the best days because, as I always like to say, it's when you're off venturing out on your own and going down those small alleys. That's when the most memories happen traveling. Certainly for me. Our art lovers in the group will probably want to go to some place like Musée Garnier, which has something like 11 or 12,000 works of art from all of the famous masters. I mean, this museum, which is, virtually unknown outside of the southern part of France, rivals the art collections that you'll find at the Louvre or Prado or any other places. Really, really remarkable. Of course, you might just wander around and try some of the delicacies that Provence is so well known for. It's also going to be a Thursday, which means it's market day in Aix. And so, I love to wander around the markets, and I know our members do as well, because, particularly French markets, to see the vast scope of, vegetables and handicrafts. I mean, we all know how much effort and how much attention that the French pay to their cuisine, but witnessing it firsthand is, for me, always one of the highlights of touring around in France. So that's going to be our free day in Aix. After that, we'll head out to the so-called Luberon villages and the city of Avignon, which rivals Aix. And I considered staying in Avignon, except that it's a bit further from some of the other great places to see. So I decided on Aix as a base, but Avignon with its famous Palace of the Popes, is an equally beautiful city. But it's the Luberon villages like Gordes, named after me, of course, and Bonnieux. The scenery is much like you'd find in Tuscany, but of course it's not Italian, it's French. But these beautiful hilltop towns with a view all over the rolling countryside. It's just so amazing, and yet it's so Provençal as compared to what you'll find in Tuscany. So if you've been to Tuscany, you will appreciate the French version of that in some of these villages. And as I say, we'll spend a good half a day in Avignon on the banks of the Rhone River, and wander around and see some of the amazing sites like the Pont d'Avignon, which is the bridge, of course, that the ancient bridge that spans the river and is one of the landmarks of the city. So that'll be our day in Avignon. And then our week in Aix will come to a close, and we'll then move on down to the Mediterranean coast and visit the French Riviera, which again doesn't need much introduction. You've probably always seen pictures of it. I decided we're going to make a side trip slightly out of the way. We're going to stop in Centopei, which many of you will recognize because it's sort of the glamorous and chic hotspot for the wealthy from all around the world. The movie stars always used to go to Centopei, and they still do. It's still a very glamorous spot. It's a little peninsula that sticks out of the south coast, and we'll definitely have lunch there, and you can soak up that vibe that Centopei is so well known for. And then we'll drive all along the coast through past towns like Cannes and Cap d'Antibes, and you'll really get a sense of why it is that people absolutely flock to the south of France through much of the year, but in particular the summer months, and it'll certainly still be busy at this time of the year. And we'll arrive in Nice. And Nice, I've been several times in Nice. The last time was not too far, but too long before COVID happened, and I just adore the city. It's so beautiful, situated on the banks of the situated on the shore of the Mediterranean, of course, with its big long beaches, and the Promenade des Anglais, which is of course this walkway that you see there that spans about 7 kilometers all the way down past all these Belle Epoque buildings like the Hotel Tedesco and the Hotel Negresco, which is famous for the Negronis that were allegedly originated from there. I mean, Nice is beautiful. And then to the north, you have, of course, the mountains that form the backdrop. Absolutely brilliant, brilliant city. And we'll have, again, time to get an orientation because we'll have a few days there, a few half days of free time. And it's a great city to walk around and visit all the very, very old part of the city, the Place Messina with the massive garden that they created. When I first went to Nice on that same backpacking trip 30 years ago, it was a lovely city, but it has really changed and again renewed so much during all this time. We're not there for the beaches. It's kind of the wrong time of the year. But also the one thing I find is that Canadians have a little bit of a different view on the beach culture in Europe, where a beach like the one that you see there is absolutely packed wall to wall in the summertime. Like there's hardly room to move your elbows. And I think it's kind of not our kind of thing because, whenever I've been there before in summer season, folks from Canada always kind of look at it and go, why do you want to be on a beach, stuffed in like sardines? But at this time of the year, it's a great time to walk and see it all. So as I say, we'll spend a total of 4 nights in Nice. We have also a lovely hotel. I didn't stick a picture in here, but there will be one in the brochure, a boutique hotel, again, walking distance from everything that you want to see in Nice. Nice is not only known for, of course, the city itself, but what's called the hinterland. And this is the villages, the towns of Vence and Saint-Paul-de-Vence, in particular Saint-Paul-de-Vence. And this is once again back in the hills. It's called the hinterland, as it were. And this is an artist's village. So you wander through the town and, the buildings are as beautiful as anywhere in Provence, but it's the galleries and the artists who are there manning their galleries. It's not just art on the wall, but typically you have the artists that are there. You can have wonderful conversations, and there's such a wide variety of stuff to see. And even if you're not interested in actually buying art, let's face it, most of our members are not at a point in their lives where they want to collect more stuff. But at the same time, the diversity of what you see, and having conversations with all of these artists about what inspired them about the landscape, or there's a lot of abstract and painting and so on. And I've picked up a few little pieces whenever I visited Saint-Paul de Vence, and for me, it's one of the coolest art gallery towns that I've been to. Vence, which is a little bit to the north of Saint-Paul de Vence, was one of the spots where Henri Matisse created many of his works. And so we'll spend a little bit of time visiting that town. And finally, we'll stop in the village of Grasse. And Grasse is the international center, or the most recognized center of perfume, because so many of the flowers and other herbs that make up the various fragrances all originated from that area around Grasse. So we'll get a little bit of an insight and some education as to what goes into perfumes and why Grasse is really as I say, the mecca for the international perfume industry. Our last full day on this trip will be in Monaco. Sorry, my screen is going a little bit slow today. I apologize for that. So our last full day on our Provence and French Riviera trip will be a visit to Monaco. And of course, we've all heard of Monaco for different reasons. It's the second smallest country in the world at just about 2 square kilometers, if you can imagine. And yet so much money is parked in Monaco that it will truly blow your mind. And when you look and you wander along the yacht harbor, and you see all these massive super yachts, and you see all the condos that sell for $20,000 a square meter, and $20,000 a square foot and up. It just blows your mind. Monaco is probably best known for the Casino of Monte Carlo. That's what actually where this influx of money originated from, was originally from the casino, and it's been run by the same family as Prince Albert of Monaco, of course, the ruler, and it's the oldest surviving monarchy. The same line of people have been in charge of Monaco all these years. So it's fascinating to get an insight into the lifestyle of the rich and famous, as it were, as we visit Monaco for a good part of the day, and then we'll head back to Nice and have a farewell dinner at a very special spot that we've picked up, and reflect on our wonderful time in the south of France that we'll have enjoyed over the last 11 nights. And so from there, it's a departure, and that will conclude our Provence and Côte d'Azur part of our trip, as well as the overall France Kaleidoscope for those that are going on more than one part of it. Just to give you a little bit of insights to what this is all about. So this program, which is 11 nights in duration, is at $5,480. And I was talking the other day with Joel about this and looking at it, because if you think about it, in the past, before COVID, we had contemplated doing a river cruise down the Rhone Valley, which comes in at roughly the same price as this for a 1-week river cruise. And I would never knock river cruises, but the value that you get by spending 11 nights and doing all of these amazing places, like the level to which you can immerse yourself in this part of the south of France, is truly amazing for that value. As usual, all the things that are covered, we generally do, as you know, 2 meals a day. We do breakfast and either a lunch or a dinner, because we find that our members don't want to eat 3 full course meals every day. And this way, we'll show you some of our favorite restaurants that we've picked out for this trip. But at the same time, we'll be able to point you in the direction if you want to eat Michelin star French food, or if you want to just try the small little brasserie, which is part of the fun part about wandering around, is just going and finding some little romantic spot in the alleyways of Aix or Nice. And that's what makes a trip particularly special. So I won't go through all the exclusions. Of course, all these details are available in the brochure, and that will be available if you, we'll be sending that out again, together with a replay of this tomorrow, I guess. Talking about airfare, prices again, what we anticipate is that they should be hopefully the same as what they were historically. So around, $1,000 or so, depending on where in Canada that you're coming from. We're still watching what's happening with airfares, and I'll be giving you some details on that because it's obviously time to book flights for some of our trips. For those that haven't looked into the program we're doing immediately before this, so if you're looking at for an extended trip around France, the third part of our journey will be boating the Canal du Midi. I've got some lovely houseboats, and we'll be traveling down the southern part of the canal from Carcassonne all the way to Agde on the Mediterranean in the week immediately prior to Provence. So it's a lovely little trip because you're just in the purest of French countryside. I love the Canal du Midi. Again, I'm hoping to get down to this region again next month if I'm lucky, if all goes according to plan. And so let's see. So now it's time for questions and answers. Paula, what are our members asking about?
Sure. So I have a couple of questions here. One is asking about the weather in this area of France at the end of October.
Yeah, well, we did it in this order from north to south, because the weather in the south of France, I mean, you can have 20 degrees in January in Nice. I've been there in the wintertime when the weather's been quite nice. So, but I would anticipate that you'll probably get temperatures in the high teens to low 20s would be normal for the latter part of October. Could be a little bit cooler. It might be a bit cooler at night, but during the day for touring, the temperature is absolutely perfect. If you do want to go swimming in the Med, it's probably on the cool side. I will say that.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially jumping out if it's a windy day. Perfect. Another question I have is with regards to language. How easy is it to get around with English if you don't have like proficient French?
Yeah, that's fine. And I realize a lot of our members don't. Even my French is a little rusty, but I can usually get around. In these towns like Aix, which is again a university town, the young people are very good with speaking English. So what you find is that, and this is the case in a lot of places in Europe nowadays, is that people that are sort of on the older side of things, people that are, in their late 50s and above, will often struggle a bit with English. They're not as accustomed to it. But certainly, most of the places that we're visiting are used to having tourists, and English is not generally a problem. You've always got a host, you've always got me, or most of the time as well, one of our local guides. So there's somebody there. And when you're on your own, you'll probably wander into that brasserie where the guy, the chef and the owner doesn't speak any English. And so, that's part of the fun of it is occasionally getting to a point where you're, you might struggle a little bit, but that's part of the beauty of France. But in general terms, you're not going to get lost. I promise you that. We'll make sure we keep tabs on you, and you'll be fine. It's gotten so much easier with English in the last 20 years in Europe than it was before.
Yeah. And I find my Google Translate app is perfect. You can speak into it. They can speak into it. It translates it. It speaks for you in the language. So you don't have to worry about pronunciation. It really helps you get around places versus like a language dictionary. I have a few more questions that have popped in. One from the Gibsons here that are asking if we're scheduling any wine tastings or winery tours. Did we mention that?
Well, so they definitely grow wine in Provence, in this part of France, not as much as they do in other parts of France, in Languedoc-Roussillon and so on. But listen, it's France. We're always going to be tasting wine. At every single meal, there's going to be the opportunity to try some wine, either from that region or from, other parts of France. So we will make sure to include some wine tasting, but I would say that in general terms, we'll be doing more wine tasting on the Taste of Eastern France part. That'll be a little bit more intensive on on the food and the wine tasting. But as anybody who's participated in my trips, every trip for me is a wine tasting trip, because we're always, scoping out what the different wines are and ordering a few bottles and sharing them around tables. And so I promise you it'll work out.
Yeah, perfect. Judy was asking if they've booked 2 or 3 parts of the program, do you require the $1,500 deposit on each part?
No, we'll take one deposit. No, we'll just take one deposit for however many segments that you book. So no problem. As long as we have the one deposit, that will cover you for whichever segments.
Perfect. And one last question from Fran, asking if we have plans to visit Easy in Ez.
Yeah. Thank you, Fran, for bringing that up. Ez is truly a beautiful town. It's just outside of Nice. We don't have it in the specific itinerary here, but it's not far from Nice. And I certainly know that on one of our free half days, and I was wondering if somebody would mention that, because you have a breathtaking view from some of the little cafes in the town that overlooks Nice and the Mediterranean. So don't worry, Fran, we'll make sure you get to Ez as well. There's so many little nooks and crannies to visit. It's hard to pack them all in, but that's one that we'll definitely hop in a cab or hop in a bus and get up there and check it out.
Fantastic. That's the end of the questions so far that I've received. So
okay, sounds good. Well, if anybody has any questions, of course, as always, you know where to reach us. Drop us an email, give us a call, and we look forward to hearing from you. And we'd love to have you along on this terrific program. This one is, they're all going to be fantastic segments. If you decide to come on more than one, please do. We'd love to have you. And look forward to catching up with you all very soon. And we'll see you on the newsletter.